Well, hi again. Hi, everybody. Good morning in this second event of this morning session, near Futures Quasi Worlds opening, Empathic AI, Art Creates Industry, two-day conference. There are many events, many interests, many incredible people taking part in this symposium, in this very, I think, unusual gathering around the 5 years of STARTS and all that has been accomplished in the framework of all the pillars of STARTS, lighthouse projects, residencies, prizes, mind spaces, reframe. And I'm very honored to be a collaborator in this network and to have worked on this exhibition near Futures Quasi Worlds, delving into the very rich, very complex, extremely fascinating history of STARTS for these past years. I've had the enormous pleasure of collaborating with Silvana Fiorese, who has also worked on the curatorial aspect in this adventure. But I have to thank, first and foremost, STARTS, Ralph Doom, Luis Miguel Girao, Patricia Delgado, who have put all the efforts into this impulse and this exhibition. I also want to thank STARTS State Studio, State Studio for hosting the exhibition, for the amazing coordination, for the logistics of the show, and certainly I want to thank all of the artists in the exhibition, everybody who has taken part in making this possible, also some of the galleries, representatives, collaborators of the artists, who have helped enormously to bring all these works together. And we're very happy about the result. I will say a few words of introduction about this project before we start this online guided tour. The exhibition is, of course, one of many possible formulations of a field. We call it Near Futures Quasi Worlds because in that concept, in that accumulation of words, it's like an additive syntagm, near plus futures plus quasi plus worlds. We find some sort of cluster, a conceptual cluster where the encounter between art, science, and technology can be summarized. Both artists, scientists, and technologists seem to live in this aboutness, in this imminence of what's going to happen, what is going to occur, what's just near accomplishment. And then there is never a final accomplishment. Research is always pursued and pushed forward and forward, as well as the limits of research. And I think that's the common spirit that animates all the projects in the exhibition and at large, all the project that STARTS is fostering. The show gathers 11 artists, but again, that's not exactly fair because everybody is very much in a collaborative spirit and everybody is calling upon various levels of expertise in various fields. We are in the middle of an incredibly dynamic space of cross-pollination, co-creation, collaboration. The exhibition is one common space. It is very physical. I have to emphasize that because when people speak about technology, when they speak about science and research and art and post-digital, etc., post-internet art, we tend to think of synthetic images, intangibles of multiple types, and let's say realizations that remain at the level of hypothesis. This is absolutely not the case, as the exhibition shows, I think, in all its consistency. The artworks resulting and the projects resulting from these collaborations are very material, are to be experienced with one's full body, with one's full sensorium. And it is very important that this exhibition is seen personally. I can only insist in inviting all of you who are watching this program, this morning program, to come this evening and to register for the opening at State Studio. Please join us. It's a very, very long stretch, and that's precisely to be able to accommodate everyone during the afternoon and evening opening. So please make sure that you get here, and we're in the center of Berlin. It's an amazing setting for what we're doing. So going back to the exhibition Near Futures Quasi Worlds, it is a framework of radical speculation, of radical anticipation of futures and worlds, and we will see that in every one of the works that I will describe in a few seconds. The exhibition has two separate conceptual territories that I also describe. The first of these conceptual territories, I have dubbed it Worlds in Progress, and that's where the exhibition starts. Imagine that we are crossing the door now, and we're going to face the first artwork in our visit. As you can see in the image, there are two screens, one vertical and one horizontal. We are in front of Refik Anadol's Melting Memories. This is one of the many manifestations of this acclaimed project. What we can see in the exhibition space is one monitor showing all the massive data processing that is occurring after the retrieval of brain information, neural information from the electroencephalogram that is being practiced on the artist. And the result is a visualization of neural processes. It is a very abstract and compelling image that is really, hold 1 second. Yes, sorry. Yes. It is an image that constantly moves, that is constantly changing, and that brings us to face some, I think, overwhelming complexity. The project was developed at the Neuroscape laboratory at the University of California, where Refik Anadol resides. He's based in Adaiba. He studied in Europe, and he's from Turkish origin. And this project was developed as a study into brain processes. There is a medical and neuroscientific interest to it, but there is also a very immediate aesthetic and provocative vision of all these processes. Refik Anadol is an artist working with new media and digital visualization, and he is very well known for his immersive spaces, for his audiovisual performances. And I think this is one very, very compelling example of what he does. If we continue in the exhibition space, past Refik Anadol's piece, we will find a very similar texture. It's low relief in three different plates. All of them are made out of plaster, but they come with a lamp. It's a very enigmatic object, and it is the work of Félicie de Tiendorf, a French artist who worked with a division of the CNRS, the French National Research Institute, to bring us as close as possible to the experience of the horizon on planet Mars. The laboratory that she worked with, specialized in dynamic meteorology, helped the artist come up with these topographies of major sites in the geography of Mars. And the action of the lamp is actually a simulation of, in a very, very accurate simulation, proportionally to the actual height and intensity of sunlight along the line when the sun is moving to its sunset. This is of course, a very uncommon experience. It's not only a visualization of the horizon, this is also a visualization of the encounter between the horizon and the landscape. It's a very, very radical experience of outer space, thanks to the work of Félicité Tiendorve. We can keep moving past this work to the next piece in the exhibition, which also deals with the cosmos and astrophysics. As well as Félicie was working with astrophysicists to develop her own vision of the planets. Here, Evelina Dominic and Dimitri Gelfand work rather in the field of cosmology and theoretical physics to develop a Hilbert Hotel. Hilbert Hotel is actually, as you see, very small and mysterious purple object. When one comes close, there is the encounter of a parade, a microscopic parade of hollow crystal microspheres. This parade is actually the direct reference of the Hilbert Hotel as a trope in cosmology and mathematics. This metaphor originates in the work of David Hilbert, a mathematician who at some point formulated the question, how could we imagine an infinitely large hotel being filled by an infinite number of incoming guests? And in this projection of the necessity of matching two infinite sequences that are working in a syncopated way, we can see the parade of these crystals. The artists also relate this work to the writing of George Gamow, who is an important theoretical physicist in recent history, who was responsible for the evolution, the advancement of the inflationist theory of the cosmos. So in this space, we experience the parade of these crystals. It is another dynamic work. And I believe it is very important to emphasize that in this exhibition, particularly in this first sequence, there is a very strong kinetic element, meaning that not only the works are tangible and three-dimensional, they are also four-dimensional or multi-dimensional. They are not only volumes, they are not only beyond the effect of surface that the digital world can make us think contemporary art would be. They are also moving, and our experience, our navigation of space is directly determined by the temporalities of these works. So that is for Evelina and Dimitri's work, which is, again, you know, it's absolutely mandatory that you come and see it physically, to experience it materially. It is a dynamic work, a kinetic work, and so is the piece that is next to them. A very different device. It is a work by Ralph Becker, an artist working with, let's say, a complexity-oriented mindset. In this piece called Putting the Pieces Back Together, Ralph Becker devised a machine that is made of thousands, I think the exact number is 1,250,000 stepper motors that are rotating on a binary mode, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and they react to each other. They have this very sensitive polarization, so as soon as they sort of pressure each other, they change direction. And in this very choral process, these objects start locking each other, start composing patterns and producing this landscape, this very very compelling and very difficult to grasp image of collective action, of a mechanic made out of many actors. And so these mechanical actors are also in a constant resetting and reformation, recomposition of the patterns. It is a piece that, exactly as the others, speaks to us about densities, complexities, time, rhythm and arrhythmia and composition and a certain dimensionality that is beyond what we can simply perceive physically. These are the works in the first floor, and there is another work in the basement that continues this line of discussion within the exhibition's concept. It is a work that introduces another variable in this equation, which is the variable of the living. We are now not only in the geographical and the topographical. We are not only in the topos. We are also in the bios, in the biotopography of this accumulation of soil, where a multitude of living organisms, and particularly earthworms, are going about their daily business and producing these itineraries, these grooves and these marks in the very complex multi-layer monolith that is in the center of the gallery as this very, very dark space. It is quite surprising to observe that these grooves made by the earthworms are not very, very far from the same appearance you can find in the Martian geography, in the plaster low reliefs that I was pointing at a few minutes ago. Here, the work of Kashamolga and Kerner is oriented toward the production of a soundscape, very complex, hybrid, live musical composition, where the sound of these organisms within the soil crepitates. It produces all these cracking noises that give away this dense tapestry where one gets during the visit. Again, it is very important to be here physically to experience this environment with one's own body. We have to come back up into the first floor, and from there into the second floor of the exhibition, this second level where I am now. One goes into the first gallery there, and the encounter now is, again, another twist of these worlds in progress. We are in the domain of the living, but we are in the domain of the encoding of the living, the translation of the living into code. This piece you are seeing now in the other screen is I'm Humanity by Atsuko Yakushimar. It's a music project. Atsuko Yakushimar is a very important pop star in Japan, and this project received one of the awards of the S+T+ARTS initiative in recent years. I'm Humanity is a project where the artist decided not only to compose a very successful pop song, but also to encode it as DNA and to translate it into the genome of a microorganism, a type of protozoa that is known for its high capacity to replicate. And the idea, what the artist called her desire to produce post-humanity music, was that by encoding this song into the genome of these microorganisms, one could imagine these beings existing beyond the scope of humanity on Earth and carrying many millions of years after our extinction as a species this song, I'm Humanity, in it. And it's a of course, the song is not very epic. It's rather lyrical and cute, and it speaks about the fragility of human passions and human life. It is a beautiful example of Japanese pop music in its I think in its naive and very ironic complexity. Next to this work, and again, considering the encoding of human life, there's a project that has much darker connotations, but well, unless we consider the extinction of humanity you know, a dark prospect. This, you just saw the picture of Pavlos Fissas, an activist who was murdered in Greece in 2013 by the hordes of neo-Nazi party Golden Dawn. And it was a very, very barbaric act that remained, well, largely opaque to the public eye, and that is why the family of Pavlos Fissas, who was a musician, very, very well known in Greece, commissioned forensic architecture to study the elements that had led to the process being, well, getting stuck. Forensic Architecture is an agency operating from Central St. Martin's School in London. It is a very international and justice-driven art project. I think it's a project of aesthetics rather than art, because it deals with perception, with what is key to art, but is also key to human public life. And forensic architecture is specialized in reconstruction, in recomposition of events, and in the refiguration of what was before their work, let's say, buried in bad data. So in the murder of Pavlos Fissas, forensic architecture used fragments of audio and video recordings that they matched together using very, very complex processing in order to disentangle this opaque event, and they arrived to the evidence that this murder happened with the assistance of the police forces, of some members of the police forces in that moment in Greece. And of course, this is a very, very shocking conclusion for an art project that is, again, useful as evidence beyond art, beyond aesthetics, and in the realm of public life. But I don't think we should see that as anything different from the rest of the work that we are showing here. It was very important that we see a continuity between public life, the political, scientific ingenuity, technological advancement, artistic desires, impulses, and ambitions, and also obsessions, and that all that appears in the same space, because I believe this project as a whole simply witnesses for the collective endeavor we are all committed to, and that is the advancement of human consciousness. So, speaking about reconstruction, actually, we move into the next part of the exhibition. The works of Egor Kraft are also reconstructions, and they also use neural networks and machine learning. We are in a different type of reconstruction, but at the same time, nothing is too different here, nothing is similar. These statues, as you can see, were missing fragments, and collaborating with the Strelka Institute in Moscow and the University of Southampton, the artist Egor Kraft managed to create this, to establish this protocol of reconstruction, what he calls speculative restoration of antique objects and statuary. I say the word statuary with a purpose, because this is actually the main topic, the second conceptual territory of the exhibition. We speak about statuary because in this other, the second half of the show, we are interested in the encounter of contemporary science, technology, and art with the most classical and ancient topics, with the most important, let's say, legacy of Western culture, but not only Western. I think all over human history and human cultural history, one can find the concept of statuary as a very important function for memory, for our acknowledgement of what is the physical world, the body, what is emblematic to us, etc., etc. The statuary is a field where we saw an opportunity to present works of advanced research, technology, advanced collaboration between artists, designers, and scientists, and all that because we feel that there is a classicism to come in all these works. We can, again, from a perspective that is perhaps at the verge of our species and the temporality of our species, we can see the statues and the monuments of the future, perhaps the near future, perhaps the far future. So these antiques are being seen from the perspective perhaps of a non-human eye. Perhaps we will be, our projects will be carried out after us by machines who will be then interpreting the classical. They will be reading statues and they will be trying to make sense out of them. In Egorcraft's work, what is really beautiful is that when machines and machine learning devices try to interpret these sculptures, and particularly their missing fragments, they come up with very strange solutions. Sometimes an eye and an ear are merged into a very strange texture. Sometimes a head appears behind the neck of a statue, and sometimes a frieze has emergent components that would be unlikely to appear in the mind of the original sculpture. But I think that gives us an idea of how many possible readings, how many distant interpretations can be triggered by pure machine intelligence. As we pan through the gallery, we are also confronted with the image of a robot. This mechanism on wheels, as you see, it's composed of a skateboard. It has 4 wheels and some weight to keep it stable. And then there is some sort of easel. It is certainly reminiscent of painting history, and a double arm, a double pendulum that, as you see now, can rotate at with a lot of strength and speed, and produce this writing. It's certainly senseless or asemic writing. At least for us, it is asemic. It can be read as pure gesture. I think it is something that is midway between like machine-based vandalism and assisted abstract expressionism. It is something that brings us also close to the tradition of mural painting and fresco, but of course to the contemporary practice of graffiti. This is the work of Takahiro Yamaguchi and So Kano, 2 Japanese practitioners also in art and technology. And the senseless drawing bot was made in 2011 in the first iteration, and then it has been perfected and developed over the years. We're very happy to have the senseless bot operating live in the exhibition. Again, another reason to come visit the show is that you will see the robot painting. At the end, in the next 3.5 weeks, we will probably have an incredible mural made by this bot. And mechanical drawing and chromatism are also at the center of the next project. If we continue through the room, we'll see the project Digital Vogue by Julia Kerner. Julia is a designer based in Los Angeles, but she's originally from Austria, where she studied the first part of her education happened there at Angewandte, but then she studied in parametric design at UCLA, where she still teaches. And this project, Digital Vogue, takes as a starting point, again, life and its encoding of fabulous combinations of information, of sensory information. In this case, it's on the wings of the Madagascar sunset butterfly, a fairly large animal that has really complex wing textures. Some parts are very hairy, others velvety, others very compact. And the filaments of these butterfly wings are also very complex in color. So using that biological reference as an inspiration, Julia Kerner worked with the company Stratasys, which is an experimental company working with digital 3D printing. And they developed this technology to print directly on fabric, but what it's printed is not stains, and it's not just sheer monochromatic volume. It is polychromed filaments, and a very large multiplicity of textures can be found in this in this procedure. What we show in the gallery here at State Studio is a sampler of some of the most striking tests in this technology, and then a larger sample of the Sete jacket that Julia Kerner developed in collaboration with S+T+ARTS. This is a very beautiful piece of attire that creates this second skin. It is actually a fur for the human body, a synthetic fur, imitating, reproducing the textures of the Madagascar sunset butterfly. It's a very compelling project, and again, very tangible, very physical outcome of hardcore digital research. The last work in this itinerary I've created, which of course is one of many itineraries. You might as well come to the show and start from the very top and then go exactly at will from one work to the other, exactly as a butterfly. Here what you're seeing, and it's just behind me here, is the magnetic motion dress and attire collection by Iris van Herpen. Van Herpen is a designer acclaimed for her haute couture designs. She runs a studio in the Netherlands where the craftsmanship and at the same time the inspiration of science come together. This work she developed with Jolan van der Wiel and Philip Beasley, architect and artists that collaborated with her in magnetic motion. The main inspiration for this series was actually a visit that Iris van Herpen did to CERN, to the Large Hadron Collider. And what was most striking to her, based on her account of the event, was the realization that she was entering a space where the magnetic field was being produced at 20,000 times the power of the Earth's magnetic field. And that impression she brought into this collection of ready-to-wear garments and dresses, shoes. We have here two examples of this production. I think it's a very good way to conclude this tour, because magneticism, an invisible force giving shape to very tangible, invisible, and audible things, and a force going through the entire universe and allowing us to navigate many, many layers of existence, of knowledge, of human production. Well, I think that that idea of the magneticism of the magnetic is very compelling and very representative of the way we have been drawn into this project, into this research in Near Futures Quasi Worlds. And I hope you will be also magnetically driven to State Studio for a visit in the coming days until July 26th. The show will be on view. This was all from my part. Thank you very much for watching and listening, to all those who stayed in front of the screen. And I'm very happy to now announce the next event. It will be the STARTS talk with a number of amazing guests. I invite you to continue and stay tuned, continue on this event, and I hope I will see many of you this evening live at State Studio. Thank you.